Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Fowler, and it is great to be here today. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 17 startups. I've been involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company. I am the co-founder and president of GSD Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in Palo Alto, California, the heart of Silicon Valley. And with that, I'd like to introduce my incredible guest, Gabriele Lang. Gabriele is a psychologist. She's from Austria. She's worked for companies like Zender. She's worked for Coca-Cola. And her company is called Up and Change, and it is going to change the world. And with that, I'd like to bring Gabby on board. Hello, Gabby.
Hello from Vienna. Hello,
Well,
Gary.
how is Vienna anyhow, Gabby?
Yeah, Vienna is good. It's getting colder. Unfortunately, our numbers are going up in COVID. So it's a bit challenging at the moment for all the businesses, of course.
Now, I got a question for you. Now, I used to be a psychologist too, so I know a little bit about Sigmund Freud. Was he really from Vienna?
Yes, Berggasse is not far away from where I work and where I live. So in Berggasse, there's a museum now, and around the corner is also a Sigmund Freud park. And he was working and living here
That's
before he moved to London. Yeah.
that's incredible. And so, what kind of psychologist? What did you study when you went to graduate school for psychology? What type of psychology? Organizational or clinical or consulting or?
I started off, interesting question, because I started off doing quite a lot of children's psychology, so working with kids and teenagers, also with legasthenic kids. And then I did my master's on in the clinical area. But then starting work, it was more and more organizational psychology I moved into. And clearly, you can't really say it. It's everything to do with conflict management and leadership. So everything in the area where it's about emotional skills, emotional competencies, that's where my passion and my expertise is.
On a story, I was back long, many, many years ago. I was out in California. It was in the early '80s, and my uncle took me out there for when I finished graduate school. And so I went to San Diego, and as luck would have it, I happened to get a phone book, and Carl Rogers' phone number was in the phone book. C.R. Rogers is what it said, and I thought, well, this can't be him, but I'm going to make a phone call. So I call up, and this housekeeper says, "May I speak to Dr. I said, "May I speak to Dr. Rogers?" And she says, "Dr. Rogers is currently taking a shower. He will be available in 15 minutes." And I'm like, this can't be the same guy, right? I talked to Carl Rogers.
Wow.
So we started talking about unconditional love, positive regard. But here's the thing, Gabby. When I spoke to him, he was nothing like any of the books that I've read. He was more pragmatic and, I mean, business-like than he was like this compassionate psychologist. I thought he was going to like embrace me across the phone and say, "Oh, it's great to be here, and it's great to have you," and all that. But no,
Interesting. Isn't it interesting where you've got a picture from a person reading his books and hearing from him, and then it's totally different if you
totally
talk.
different. I couldn't believe it. I probably spent a half an hour on the phone with him. He was very gracious, and he invited me to come over to his place. I just didn't want to. I didn't feel that. It's like at that time when you come right out of graduate school, it's like talking to God, right? It was like as close as a living example as you were going to get at that time for me. I was like, it was so weird because I was like, this is a person. It's like the Steve Jobs of psychology at the time for me. I was
Exactly.
here he is, right?
Yeah, that's quite
What do you
impressive.
say to him? There was like, what's your view of life? And you have already read it, but yeah, it was really interesting. He was very kind, and so anyhow, that was my Carl Rogers story, and then I went
You
to
know what, Gary? I presume he was quite excited talking to young psychologists.
He
Yeah,
was
I can
he
imagine.
was excited. Yeah, he was asking me what I do, and we went back and forth, and then we talked about Harry Harlow's study. Remember, a lot of what he did came from Harlow's study of monkeys and how they, the ones with a towel and those without a towel, and they're now. If you did those kind of studies, you'd have a problem. You'd probably go to jail. But at the time, at the time, it was interesting, and so we talked about that a bit. It was just unbelievable. It was like what it means, though, Gabby, is that whatever you dream, you can make come true. Because that was like my dream at the time. I had been in humanistic psychology myself. I slanted over that direction, and it means you can do anything you want if you really.
There's a lot of opportunities we don't see if we don't take the time.
That's
That's
right. And the Pygmalion effect, the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Sometimes we
yeah,
forget,
that's true.
especially in
That's true.
startups, you have to visualize, and they talk about the law of attraction, but it's true, because if you're positive, positive things happen around you. It's unbelievable what happens.
Yeah. And it also shows, an interest in people. If you've got an interest in people, that's important.
So how did you get in psychology? Did you wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a psychologist, or what happened?
I think my interest in psychology started in school when we had psychology. And but I wanted to become first a nurse, and then a physiotherapist because my mom was in a wheelchair. So I thought, that's a very exciting area because you're working with people very closely, and it's also got to do with psychology a lot. But anyway, I because I started school at 5 instead of 6, and I didn't have, I couldn't do machine typing at that time, and that was a precondition. I decided out of my heart, what should I do the year till I gained these skills, and I
You mean like
decided,
using a typewriter,
pardon?
like typing on a computer, like.
Yeah, no, typing, yeah, but in a machine there wasn't the computer then.
Yeah, yeah, you know what
Thinking,
happened, Gabby? You know what happened to me? So I was in high school, and my father told me, he said, you have to take typing courses. And I said, why, Dad? He said, because it's going to be really important when you go to college, because if not, you're going to be doing the one finger thing like I do. And I said, I don't want to do it. He said, no, this is one of the courses you have to take. So I went from the academic program over to the business program, and I'm in there with all women in these classes, taking typing 2 years of it. My dad made me take 2 years of
yeah,
typing. It was the best skill that I, because I could, I was slow compared to some of them, but I still, when I got to college, and I need to use the typewriter at the time, typewriter, it seems like a long time ago now, but now on the computer. So yeah, it's amazing the kind of skill sets that we.
yeah, you need, and but the interesting thing is because I didn't have that skill, I had to, think about doing something in the year while I was gaining these skills. And that was the first time where I really could decide what I really wanted to do because I had a plan. I had a plan to be a physiotherapist, yeah. And for the year, I decided I would study psychology because that was a heart wish. And that's the interesting thing in my life because life more or less forced me to do something I really love to do. And after 1 year, of course, ambitious as I am or was, yeah, I decided, wait a minute, 1 year of psychology and 3 years of physiotherapist is nearly the studies of psychology, so I continued psychology. And that was the best decision. Although the interesting thing is, when I started working then, starting off with an internship at Procter& Gamble, then Research International Market Research, and then going to Coke, there were over and over again times where I decided, why didn't I study business administration? So I did an executive MBA afterwards because I had the feeling I needed it. And that's the nice thing because it's a balance between psychology and business administration on the other side. But it was interesting how for a certain amount of time in my career in international companies, I would have wished I would have studied business administration. Only when I started being a consultant at Egon Zinter, And by the way, I was the first female consultant in Vienna, Austria, next to all my male colleagues. It was interesting then that I had the feeling the loop was closing, and I understood why I had originally studied psychology. And that's the bridge I now, it started then in 2006, but which I have built further and further, the link between the rational world on the one side with functional competencies and the emotional world and the world of psychology on the other side.
Now that's great. When I went through graduate school, I was going to go for my PhD, and I went through my master's, and then I decided I was going to go to medical school. So I came out. I thought, well, geez, I'd rather go to medical school, but I need to have money. I was sick of not having. I was a graduate assistant, and so I ended up coming out, and I said, well, let me try something else. So I got involved selling Apple computers. And so what I started to sell, the first Apple computers, the Apple IIs, I understood that the world was going to fundamentally change. And so I got involved with that. And, we were making money at that time that was unfathomable. I was making 3 times as much as my dad was making as a professor. And so got involved, and then I started to go down through and think about it. I thought, I don't really want to be a psychiatrist. I met one of the guys who actually started selling computers. He was a distributor. And I said, why did you get out of psychiatry? He said, would you want to work with crazy people all the time?
But I believe you. There was a joke once, at Coke, we were canceling some event which I had organized, with all this effort. And I remember talking to one of the bosses, and I said, you know what? If I had worked as a psychologist, it wouldn't have been less, idiots more or less than like here. I mean, that was a joke, of course.
Yeah. Well, that's true, because
it was sort of funny because I believe, everyone has challenges, and, it's interesting in the business world if you land up as a psychologist, because you look differently at certain things and you do it differently sometimes. And I think that's the great thing. You bring a new perspective into the business world.
Well, one of the things that I learned, the lessons learned from that point, I started my first company right after that, like 21. So I was doing the Apple stuff and selling other products too. But I ended up starting my first company. And I remembered all the, if you think positively, positive things happen. And so those same rules applied, and be kind and gracious and try to do the right, do it the right way. And if you apply those principles, you can really move forward in your life. So let's talk about Up and Change. So how in the world did you decide to come up with Up and Change? And so tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. It's interesting because after 17 years in international companies, I figured out that I was doing something differently, and it was successful. So people were giving me this feedback. And so I decided, when I was still working at Egon Zehnder International, I was thinking and sitting there thinking, would I enjoy doing that for the next 20 years? And it was a definite.
What was Egon Zehnder? So tell the audience, tell everybody about Egon Zehnder, because they're from all over the world. They may not know.
Yeah, Egon Zehnder is one of the top executive search companies. So we evaluated managers, and we recruited managers. And it's a worldwide company, originally started in Switzerland by Egon Zehnder. So he's still alive. And and I was doing consulting jobs, so I was looking for managers. And it was interesting because what I figured out then already was that many people or clients, when they set specifications for people and managers they wanted to hire, it was usually quite a lot on functional competencies. It was a lot of about the experience in the market. So ideally, they wanted somebody who had done exactly the same in a similar company. So
Well, then
there was
how could people ever grow if they never have a chance? They'd have to grow within the company and then get recruited out of the company, right?
yeah. I mean, not even talking if within or outside the company, but it's interesting that if a specification, of course, is mainly based on functional competencies, and there's not too much. I mean, of course, there's something on developing organizational skills, and there's something on team leadership, but it sort of wasn't, the emphasis. And the interesting thing is that there was the biggest challenge was the onboarding of people. So it's about, although everything's about, scopes and functional competencies, the failure rate of people is usually because there's a clash in values, there's a clash of the way people are doing things or thinking, and it's on the human side people fail. It's not usually because of the functional failing. And but it was interesting. So the focus wasn't on emotional intelligence, it wasn't on emotional competences, and it also wasn't about, wait a minute, this person has a right set of competencies. He's got no, or she, I'm not gendering now, is they haven't got competent, experience in the area, but they've got the right set of competencies. That was a certain risk, because if you had to be courageous as customer to do something like that, because if the person failed, you couldn't say, but wait a minute, I mean, we were looking for somebody who had all this experience. We couldn't have foreseen that this person would fail. So it needed courage to do things differently, courage to do, to go against the mainstream. And that's something, which I figured out in Egon Center. But your question was, how did I come to found the company? So I was, after Egon Center, I decided to make myself self-employed because I just had a big vision. I wanted to work with people and help them, if they were struggling in conflict situations, if they were struggling with a lack of creativity. And that was what I was doing very successfully, till I eventually discovered there were quite a few barriers. The one thing is, not everyone could afford personal executive coaching, for example, or working with an executive coach or an executive consultant. The second was that it's quite time consuming and not everyone is taking the time. There was also an element of location, because of course personal work always is location dependent. And there was a fourth thing, that even people high up in the hierarchy was saying, send me the bill privately. I don't want anyone to know I'm doing executive coaching. So there were some people who perhaps it's
Why is that, Gabby? Why didn't they want people to know?
because
I mean, it could be a competitive advantage. It could be somebody thinks that there's something wrong with them.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, because they were. Somebody could think they were lacking something. And I mean, we all know we've got strengths and development needs, so there's nobody perfect out there. But it's sort of a lot of stress is caused at the moment in the world, because you have to pretend you know everything, you can do everything, and so on. So asking questions or admitting you don't know something, or admitting mistakes, what is all important for a learning culture, this is quite a challenge nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not what is rewarded at the moment. What is rewarded is people that are shining, that are quick, and do things. So the question is, when I discovered this, I thought, wait a minute. It was bothering me, and I was thinking, how can you offer the help which is so successful in personal coaching to a broader audience in an affordable way and in a time efficient way, and with a certain security net, so that people say, okay, I'm not feeling overwhelmed. It's a digestible help, and it's a first step in my personal development in my solving of conflicts, for example. And that was more or less the original idea of Up and Change. And one day I had the idea of digitizing my executive coaching expertise. And that was the idea in August 2017 that started off Up and Change.
No, that's fantastic. So if you look at it, you're going global with the company. What's the vision? Where you want to be in 5 years with it?
In 5 years, it's an online platform offering a variety of digital tools for employees to solve the root causes of specific conflict situation. That can be a conflict, that can be lack of orientation, that can be statement, that can be if you have a lack of creativity or innovation isn't flowing. That can be with certain, if you, for example, feel powerless. So all kinds of specific conflict situations. And it's sort of conflict resolution and leadership skills in a nutshell, if you want to call it. And
So
that's
we have
what it is.
investors from all over the world that watch my show. And are you open to new investments, or where are you in terms of funding? Are you looking for strategic partners? What are you looking for out there? And
Yeah, we've successfully launched beginning of 2020 in the pilot market Austria. And so we've got our first clients, especially mid-sized and large companies, first revenues, and at the stage of retaining clients. And yes, we've got an open investment opportunity of 500,000. And we're also looking for strategic sales partnerships, especially in the area of personal and organizational development.
what kind of
To
companies would those be, Gabby? So you can define exactly what you're looking for.
it's HR service companies. It can be boutiques, yeah, but it can also be sort of bigger companies who haven't got digital products in their toolkit and want to offer that also to their clients. So people working with clients successfully already, where we can piggyback concerning the sales and marketing efforts.
Got it. Okay. Super. So, in terms of the team, how many members of your team do you have today?
We've got 3 founding members. So that's Barbara, the CFO, Peter, and myself. And we're working with a team of roughly 10 people who are not employed because we can't afford that yet. But it's all diverse experts in the area of IT, in the area of marketing, in the area of marketing. And that's how we work at the moment. And we're just putting together the specifications because we are searching for a co-creator concerning sales.
Okay,
So
super. So you're looking for sales, you're looking for partnerships with HR companies, it sounds like. So if you got a company out there, Gabby's a person to speak to about it. And in terms of fundraising, she's looking at $500,000, which is great. It sounds like your company's moving in the right direction. I know we've had a number of conversations about it. When you do a company, it's always like this. It's a roller coaster. It's never as far up as you want. It's never as far down. It's like you got to understand that's just the way it is. And I've been in situations myself where I've had $100,000 on my credit card many years ago, and I rolled the dice saying it's going to work, and it worked out splendidly. So that's
that's
just the way it is. That's what the difference is. There's a lot of. My friend told me one time. He said, "Gary, put dice in my hand," and he went like this, and he said, "Close your hand." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Now I'm going to ask you a very simple question." He said, "What's the chance you're going to have success if you never roll the dice?" And I said, "Zero." He said, "That's what life's all about. If you don't roll the dice, you're never going to know." And he said the difference between entrepreneurs, um, and other people in the world is are willing to take that risk, because that's how you grow.
And I fully agree, Gary, because Barbara sent me a picture over of an iceberg. And all you see on the top, of course, is the success and the nice PR, and you see, sort of the shining world of startups. What you don't see is the nights you're thinking and where your head is spinning all night and you can't sleep. It's not when you don't get a subsidy, for example, straight away you want it, only discovering afterwards it was the best thing you didn't get it, because otherwise you wouldn't have found other opportunities. It doesn't show how doubt sometimes on the way. Yeah, because if it doesn't succeed within a year, I mean, you don't give up. You have to be resilient. You have to be persistent. And it's funny because I've got a lovely international sparring partner, Chris, and Chris used to work for Procter and Gamble, and he was telling me the story about a visit to Silicon Valley of European business people. And it was interesting because he said the European business people had this idea of a business plan in a mature company already, which sort of goes up sort of year for year. And of course, with a startup, if you go in with the expectations within a year, you'll be rich or you'll be, number one or something. I don't think that's at least not my way of doing it, because you have to go step by step by step, knowing where you want to go very clearly, knowing your numbers off by heart, of course, being very diligent concerning, what is urgent, what is important to reach your vision. But it is, as other people say, it's this valley of death you have to walk through, where sometimes, things don't move as quickly as you want them to, where you've got more ideas than resources, and where every step you're taking is important to build a company, because the shortcuts you can't do. And I think that's the amazing right of a startup business, and being an entrepreneur. And because I've got two companies, Create Success, my executive coaching, team coaching business, and also Up and Change, my digital startup, it's very interesting, because it's different stages of companies. And you have to have the long breath to walk through this whole process.
I've seen it, so I'll give you two examples. So I had this little company from Israel approach me, and a venture capitalist at Oak Investment Partners came to me and said, hey, listen, we have this little company. Would you be interested in joining? And I took a look at it. I said, well, I'll talk to them. So they came over, little tiny company, 9 people or so. And we had this meeting, and I decided to join them. There was nothing really there. We didn't have that much money, etc. And I got on board. I changed the name of the company, came up with a family of products, really helped the company grow. I became the senior vice president of marketing business development. Did an IPO on NASDAQ. And people thought, we didn't know if we were going to live, right? The company was going to succeed. But the company sold for $1.35 billion, right?
Wow.
And I was there in the beginning. Another one, my friend P. Hong Chen. P. Hong, if you're listening, love you. It's been a long time. But he's I remember at the beginning of the e-commerce stuff, when Amazon was selling books, he told me that at the time that it was going to be a $30 billion cottage industry, 1998, 99. People didn't believe it. In 1.5 years, almost 2 years, his net worth went up $8.5 billion.
Yeah, wow.
A lot of money in that time. I saw it. And so, the situation is, I've seen it time, even Elon Musk with Tesla and PayPal, et cetera. It's just the way it is. When you hear the backstories of them, they're always not like you hear.
Yeah.
One of them I talked to Stuart Butterfield. He founded a company called Slack. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
Slack.
yeah, yeah.
So I talked to Stuart. He was over at Stanford, and I had a conversation. And he said, listen, when we did Slack, he said, it didn't work. They were in gaming. And then he moved over to this tool, project management tool, essentially, so they could communicate internally. And he said, let's sell that. And that became Slack. And so
Well, yeah.
that I had to lay off a lot of people, and I had to change. I remember he said he had like 37 employees and had to skinny it up. But what happened is he said those people are rich now. Those people that had those shares, if they didn't sell them,
Exactly. And that's interesting because I mean it's all about the challenges of sustainable development we're talking about today. And what we figured out here at Up and Change is that, especially if you look at the investor scene, bringing a digital startup in the area of HR tech, which is about conflict resolution, that the reward system of investors is somehow different sometimes than what you think, so it needs to have a return in a quick time. It's about security already in some ways, either by KPIs and so on. So I think the most challenging part is at the very beginning, where you've already got first revenues, first clients, successful feedback, successful ratings and references. Yeah. Finding investors, strategic investors who have the same thinking about what is necessary to cope with the challenges of this world. And this is a balance, more or less, of everything which is more or less what we are doing, the human side, the company culture side, the emotional side, the soft skills, and on the other side, everything which is more in the rational side. And I fully believe what Schulz von Thun always says, it's like a scale where you have to have a good balance between the both sides. And if you look at quite a lot of leaders, managers nowadays in this world, doesn't matter if it's businesses, if it's politics and so on, sometimes I think the challenge of sustainable development is that it's either or. It's not the one and the other, but it's either or. And I think that's a huge challenge of our world today, that we need probably to change the reward systems also in companies, so that the balance between rational and emotional, between getting return quickly and creativity and innovation work that takes some time and also costs money, gets back in the right balance. Because at the moment, I think the side of quick, we need the money, we get the money, tangible and technical, is overstressed at the moment. And I think that's what we're seeing all over the world at the moment. And that's where I think the bridging is important. We are doing the bridging to talk the language, but still bring in, how emotional skills, human skills, will add to the success of managers, but also to the success of companies. And this thinking of, I've got people, and more or less, I don't care about the people, they should just work because they should be grateful they've got a job. Yes, somehow, to a certain degree, this thinking perhaps is right and good. But if you don't care for people in the long run, and have a good balance between we need to earn money and we need to care for the people, I don't think sustainable success and sustainable development will be possible. And that's, where we are contributing with Up and Change and with our products.
No, that's great. I was going to ask you to summarize because we're coming to the top of the show. So that's phenomenal summary. Gabby, so how do people reach out to you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Either our webpage, upandchange.com, or by email, which is office@upandchange.com. and LinkedIn. Gabriele Lang, my LinkedIn profile. And yeah, happy, to be in contact.
All right.
And
So I thank you for coming on my show today. To my audience, get a hold of Gabby.
it
Their
was a
company Up
pleasure.
and Change is amazing, and it's going to really put a dent in the universe. And she's right about the irrational and rational world. We got to bring it together and make some sense out of it. And Up and Change does it. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the host of GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. I'd like to thank my entire team, Derek, Zhenya, and my entire team, Nick, for making it possible today. And stay tuned again, because I will be back next Tuesday with another exciting episode of GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. I'm your host, Gary Fowler. Stay safe, stay happy, and keep smiling. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Bye.